Hey guys, welcome to another episode. I'm going to be talking about a bit of a controversial topic. Great suggestion by a listener, and the topic is neutering and spaying. Okay, so neutering and spaying, basically altering a dog. It can be a topic of a lot of debate. So I'm going to be going over the main things, maybe go into a little bit of that controversy, and let you decide what you think is best for your dog. But first, I want to give a disclaimer that I am not a veterinarian. I'm not giving you any advice on what to do with your dog. I'm just telling you things from my experience, okay? What I have noticed, what works for me, what I do, and what I have experienced with my dogs. Just wanted to let you know that right off the bat to avoid any possible misunderstandings. Okay, so neutering a dog, right? When you neuter a dog, when you neuter a male, what you're doing is you're taking the testicles away. That's what neutering is. You're taking the testicles away. You are removing the reproductive part of the anatomy of the dog, which prevents it from reproducing. Okay, very cut and dry, very plain and simple. When you spay a female, you do the same exact thing. So when you spay a female, you are going in and you're removing the reproductive part of the female dog's anatomy, preventing it from reproducing. Okay, that's what, in a very simple term, in very simple terminology, that's what neutering or spaying a dog is. Just altering a dog. This is what you hear about too. Is when you hear somebody say that dog is altered, that means that dog has been spayed or neutered. When you hear that dog is intact, that means that dog has not been spayed or neutered. It's intact. Okay, so what's the controversy about this? Generally, your average pet owner does this is not necessarily to prevent it from reproducing. Okay, that's the big push with rescue organizations. That's the big push with veterinary clinics. But your average pet owner doesn't really do it for that reason. Your average pet owner is primarily doing it to curb some behavior problems, especially in males. You don't typically see this in females. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it does become a hassle, okay? So when the female is in heat, now other dogs, this is potentially now creating some issues for other dogs, okay? So if your female is in heat and she's an outdoor dog, you might have visitors coming from several houses away, okay, to visit your female in heat. So that's one of the reasons that people do this, okay? With males, neutering the male, what happens is typically the average person will get the dog neutered so that there will be less behavior problems. This is the common belief that if you neuter a male, they're not going to be aggressive. That if you neuter a male, they're not going to be, they're not going to be as much of a pain. They're not going to be that crazy. They're going to calm down a little bit. And it can happen, okay? It definitely can happen. But first and foremost, what neutering, what altering a dog does, neutering, spaying a dog does, is it cancels out the reproductive system. What it can do, okay, what it can do is it can affect their behavior. Okay, this is why people want to neuter their dogs. It can affect their behavior, okay? What people don't understand is that it's not always for the positive. It's not always for what they want, okay? Think about this. When you remove the reproductive system of an animal, you are now causing quite a bit of a hormonal imbalance. Okay, you're causing a hormonal imbalance, which in a lot of dogs, it's not even that noticeable. When you spay a female, they do pretty decent. It's more noticeable, in my experience, it's more noticeable with males. With males is where I see this is more of an issue, okay? With males, you see dogs definitely lose their edge. They lose their boldness because they don't have that testosterone flowing as much. Okay, so you cancel that testosterone, the reproductive system that produces a lot of testosterone. Now, this dog loses its edge, loses its confidence a little bit. loses its boldness. So this is what people desire. People want their male dogs to be a little bit more chill. So I understand why they want that. So it's kind of an easy fix, so to speak. Just do the surgery, and then like a week later, the dog will heal, and then the edge will be kind of away from that dog. With protection dogs, with working dogs, I see this too. I see dogs that once they get neutered, they lose their edge. It just happens, okay? Every time I've seen it, I've seen a dog, a male dog get neutered, they lose their edge. They're just not as powerful, they're not as confident. What the pet owner doesn't realize, that the opposite can happen too. So because now you have a hormonal imbalance, you now potentially have erratic behavior as a result of the hormonal imbalance. I have seen this firsthand. I've worked with clients that their dogs got neutered, and shortly after getting neutered, all the behavior problems started happening. Okay, the dog wasn't as aggressive before. The dog got neutered. A few weeks later, just tons of aggression. The dog became less tolerant. The dog became more fearful, and now that it's more fearful, now it's just on a quick trigger. So I have seen this happen with males. Okay, it definitely can happen. Okay, it can happen with females too, because you are again altering the hormones. Okay, you are you're bringing imbalance to the hormonal flow of the animal. So it can also happen in females, but I see it a lot happening with males. The male dogs that I have worked with that had issues in conjunction with the neutering, it was like very, very clear. Okay, it went from the dog, yeah, he was a little bit pushy, and he was a little bit, kind of confident, and a little bit kind of a pain. So they neutered the dog so the dog wouldn't do any of those things, and now the dog's problems just multiplied. Now that dog is fearful, and it's just aggressive, and it's just irritable. It's just all kinds of issues can happen because, again, think about this. You are altering the hormonal balance. And this happens with men too, okay? When men do go through some sort of accident or something, or something happens where their reproductive system doesn't work, they lose their confidence. They get depressed more easy. They get depressed a lot faster, and you are altering the hormonal balance. So why would it be any different with dogs? It's the same exact thing with dogs. Here's where the controversy also happens. People think, there are people on different sides here, and I'm not gonna pick a side necessarily. I'm gonna tell you kind of where I am in a little bit. But, there are people that think that this is completely inhumane and completely uncalled for, because they think, would you neuter your child? Would you neuter your teenager? Because your teenager is now becoming a little bit of a pain, it's talking back a little bit. Would you go, hey dude, like, we gotta neuter you. We gotta take your testicles out because you're being a pain. Would you do that to your children? The answer obviously is you wouldn't do that, right? So people then go, well, why would you do that to your dogs? It's inhumane. I completely understand. I completely understand. Now, if you work with animals in more than just the pet field, and more than just the companion animal field, you'll notice that altering an animal is not a huge deal if you work with animals regularly. Okay, so like if you work with farm animals on a consistent basis, altering an animal, it's not a huge, especially male, right? It's not a huge deal to alter a male. It just happens. So people have different feels about this whole ethics of, neutering an animal or spaying an animal. And then people go, well, if you neuter the dog, especially with males, this is especially more of a case with males, not so much with females. But people go, if you neuter that dog, now you don't have to worry about the potential issues that could happen with an intact male, like marking and wandering and doing all kinds of crazy things. So just get it out of the way, make the life easier for the owner, and now make this dog just be easier to handle, which makes that dog easier to handle. Now you're gonna have this dog live in the home a lot longer. It's not gonna be bouncing from home to home. It's not gonna be going from shelter to home and from home to shelter. So it just makes it easier for everybody. So people feel really strongly about that too. Like you should neuter and spay your dogs. So it's just good for everybody. It's good for society. I get all these different points of view. I completely understand. So I'm going to tell you now, my perspective from a more unbiased and more neutral standpoint. I completely understand the ethics of neutering an animal just because it's inconvenient to deal with their behaviors. I get it, and I wouldn't do it myself. Personally, I wouldn't do it just because it would make my life easier. I wouldn't do that. So that's me, okay, that's entirely me. However, for your average pet owner, I can definitely see this as a potential benefit. However, the reason that I don't like it is because there is no guarantee that this will curb unwanted behaviors. There is no guarantee that the unwanted behaviors are gonna go away, because I have seen it so many times. Sometimes the unwanted behaviors don't go away. You neuter the dog and the dog's still the same. And in some cases, I have seen the opposite happens. So the opposite is you neuter the dog, now the dog's problems multiply. So from a pet owner's perspective, okay, on behalf of the pet owner, I would say, hey dude, man, if it makes your life easier and if it makes the dog's life easier and it makes it so that you guys live together for the entire life of that dog, I would say, yes, that makes sense to me, go ahead and do it. But again, there is no guarantee. Because there is no guarantee that it's gonna happen, I can't in good conscience, say to that person, you should neuter your dog, because something worse might happen. Now the dog might have several issues, because I have seen that. Okay, now let's talk about what happens when you neuter a dog a little bit too young. Again, this is mostly an issue with males, females too. This is applicable to females as well, but normally it's the males that get the short end of this stick. When you neuter a male too young, here's what happens. You neuter the male. Now, they're not gonna develop those bold tendencies, okay? Because you're neutering them very young. So you're taking their reproductive system, their testicles out very young, at a very young age. So as this dog matures, because it's not gonna have that flow in search of testosterone, the dog won't be as likely to develop a marking behavior, as likely, okay? That's a key word. Dog won't be as likely to develop a marking behavior, humping, that won't be as likely to develop. Wandering, developing that boldness that makes that dog kind of a pain to handle sometimes. Because you neuter that dog very young, they're not as likely to develop it as they mature. Here's the disadvantage of doing it when they're young. If you do neuter them when they're young, the males, okay, what happens is they don't develop physically to their fullest potential. Okay, they truly don't. They don't develop physically to their fullest potential. What will happen now is this dog will always be on the smaller side. Their tendons, their joints, their muscles, they won't develop to their full potential, so they're not going to be as fuller or as structurally sound as they could have been with the flow of testosterone. So there's a huge disadvantage to neutering a dog when they're very young. So then people suggest, hey, if you are gonna neuter your dog when they're older, when they're about 2 or 3 years of age. And that's kind of where I fall too. If you must neuter your dog for whatever reason, maybe it's a health issue, maybe it's health related. So if you have to neuter your dog and it can wait, I would say wait until the dog is about 3 years of age, because when you neuter that dog at about 3 years of age, that male, okay, about 3 years of age, that's been already plenty of time for that dog to develop physically, for that dog to fill out to its fullest potential. By the time that dog is 3 years of age, okay, that dog is already fully developed. So you take the testicles away, now it won't be as much of an issue physically because the dog is already fully formed. There will be definitely a drop in confidence, but physically that dog is now more filled out, okay? So that's what I would say if you're gonna neuter the dog, wait till it's a little bit older. Same thing with females. If you must spay the female, and you can wait, I would say wait until they're about 2 to 3 years of age. Okay, some people say, well, wait till they have their first heat cycle and then you can spay them. So if you can wait, I would say wait. But again, you might potentially experience those erratic changes of behavior in females as well. So it's important to keep a mental note of that. Also, if you neuter a male when it's already 3, whatever bold behaviors they have developed, they're gonna stay there. So if that dog develop humping and bold behaviors, which by the way could be addressed. Okay, you don't need to take the testicles out. But if that dog has developed marking behaviors and these bold tendencies, when it's 3 years of age, you neuter that male. Yes, physically they're better off, but those behaviors, they're not gonna go away. And a lot of veterinarians don't understand this. So that's why they suggest, that's why they advise to they tell their clients, you should neuter your dog. But they don't realize is, if that dog is already a mature male, you take the testicles away, those behaviors are still probably gonna be there. Okay, so yeah, it's going to take care of the reproductive part of the dog, but behavior-wise, it's just not gonna change, all right? Or again, it could get worse. Now, more about my view on neutering and spaying. I was very in the middle. Still am really. I'm not for like, oh, that is completely inhumane. You should never, ever do that. But I'm also not for that. You should always do it. I believe it's case by case. However, recently I had an experience with one of our dogs. It's my wife's dog. Her name is Grim. And I mean, my wife loved that dog. That dog and my wife were inseparable. I mean, my wife was training that dog for competition work. She was doing really well with her. Dog was doing amazing, just excellent, just a nice dog. It was my wife's first dog, okay? And she did an amazing job with her. And when she was about 2 or so, we went ahead and decided, hey, let's just spay our dog. Let's just spay the female. And it was just one of those decisions that we didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it. Like we were like, okay, well, we're never going to breed her. So the responsible thing to do would be to spay her, because we never had the intention to breed her. Even though she was doing pretty well with obedience, she was doing well with protection work. We just never had the intention to breed this dog. Right? We believe if you're gonna breed dogs, you should really look into the bloodlines. You should really look into everything about this dog that makes it worthwhile to breed and reproduce more of this dog. But this dog wasn't the case. She was just a really nice dog. She was doing amazing, but it was never the intent to breed her. So we decided to spay her, right? It wasn't really a big deal. We never thought about anything going wrong. So what happened was she got spayed, and the spay did not go well. And as a result of the spaying, this dog passed away. Okay, it was a direct result of the spaying. So this happened, and it broke my heart. And we were like so angry and upset, and we were like, why did this happen? So I started doing research. I talked to some of my friends who were in the veterinary industry, and I did additional research on my own. And just like it is with people, right? Doing a procedure on a female involving the reproductive system is more invasive and it's more complicated than it is doing it in males. So because there is more into spaying a female than neutering a male, the complications could be higher. There could be a higher possibility of something going wrong, more so than neutering a male. So even though the possibilities of the dog, the possibilities of something going wrong during a spay are pretty low, they're still higher than they are with neutering a male. So because that's still a possibility, it just so happened that it was this dog. I mean, this dog was the statistic, and unfortunately, she passed away. So this definitely affected my view on spaying and neutering. My wife's too, and now we are a little bit more towards the side of, hey, you know, we are responsible owners. We are, you know, we're our dogs. They're not just out loose and you know, doing their own thing. Our dogs are always either they're doing something or they're relaxing, but they're never just unattended. So because of that, we've changed our view to, if we're going to alter a dog, it will only be if we absolutely have to, like medically, like if the vet tells us, hey, there's something wrong with the dog's prostate, you got to neuter him. Whatever the reason might be. I know there are some medical reasons that make it so that it alleviates a little bit more, or the risk is lower if the animal is altered. Okay, some instances, case by case. Again, I'm not a vet, okay? But I just wanted to put that out there. It is a very complex topic. People are either never neuter your dog, or you should always neuter your dog. You really, just like everything else, you gotta find your place in the middle and go, what makes sense about that view? What makes sense about that view? And where do I fall here, okay? But remember, it is ultimately about being a responsible dog owner, okay? That's what it boils down to. And it's about understanding what could happen, the consequences, the physical consequences, and behavioral consequences of doing a delicate procedure like this on your dog. So that's pretty much it. Till the next episode, see you next time. All right, guys, I'm going to be talking about a